Welcome to this Billington Cybersecurity virtual seminar called CISA Cyber Priorities. With us today, I'm honored to have Eric Goldstein, the Executive Assistant Director for Cybersecurity at CISA within the Department of Homeland Security. He will be interviewed by Dr. Matt McFadden, the VP for Cyber and Distinguished Technologist who leads the Cyber Center of Excellence at GDIT. We hope you can engage in the live chat during the program, which was filmed on March 1st. Now it's my honor to introduce to you Eric Goldstein and Matt McFadden. Now over to you, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Eric, and thanks, Tom. All right. So, Eric, I'd like to thank you for your time, especially during this elevated cybersecurity threat in light of the current events. And I think we're all thankful for CISA's mission and its important role in the defense of our nation for cyber threats. So to start out, what is the top priorities of CISA today?
Yeah, thanks so much. It really is a pleasure to be here, and particularly in an environment of heightened cyber risks that really we are facing around the world. And this is really a time more than ever, I think, to re-emphasize the steps that every organization can take to protect themselves and the core role that CISA plays as part of our broader cybersecurity ecosystem. Now, really the first priority that CISA has across the board is to make sure that every organization has the information and resources needed to manage rapidly evolving cyber risks. And so just off the bat, I will call out our newly established authoritative one-stop shop website for information about the evolving threat environment that we find ourselves in. And that's available at cisa.gov/shields-up. And so would encourage every single viewer, right now, open your browser, go to that site. That's going to be our single place to offer what we understand about the threat environment and mitigations there too. And I'll just call out, again, at the outset, one really cool resource that we just launched in the last couple of weeks, which is a catalog of free cybersecurity services. Because what we've realized is CISA and our partners are always pushing out new mitigations, new guidance on what to do. And many organizations have partners with across the private sector who provide these services on a customer basis, which is fantastic. But also many organizations are what we often call target rich but resource poor. And so they may be targeted by advanced adversaries, but can't always afford, at least in needed timeframes, these sorts of controls and other mitigants that are needed. And so our free cyber services catalog are services from CISA, from the open source community, and from partners in the private sector that organizations can adopt to help build out and be additive to their broader cybersecurity program. So that's really, of course, our nearest term priority. But of course, our work goes far more broadly. And I'll just call out two real thrusts of emphasis for the organization. The first is deepening and broadening operational collaboration. And this is really a transformation in how CISA and the broader US government interact with the cybersecurity community, and getting away from just sharing units of information to actually working side by side to understand hard cybersecurity problems and develop shared solutions that drive down risks. At CISA, we are executing this role through our Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, or the JCDC. And the JCDC really is working in two areas. First, in exigent operational collaboration to work around issues like the Log4Shell vulnerability, like the current tensions that we are seeing with malicious cyber activity targeting Ukraine, and making sure that operators from CISA, from partner agencies like NSA, FBI, Cyber Command are working side by side with practitioners at the nation's largest companies so that we can develop shared learnings and then promulgate guidance that can help protect everybody at scale. But the second piece of JCDC, which really is an exciting one, is this move towards proactive planning, actually identifying risks, the worst case scenarios that could affect our country after a cyber intrusion, and then developing proactive cyber defense plans within government and the private sector that we can then exercise together and execute together to drive down risks before these sort of negative events happen. So really operational collaboration is at the forefront of our priority set for the near future. But we also understand that we need to also move past responding only to the latest vulnerability or the current threat. And we need to build a technology ecosystem that is more secure and resilient by design. And so we're also deeply focused on being a positive contributor to that evolution of an environment where technology is designed, built, managed, and used securely. Now, part of this is our work for initiatives like evangelizing adoption of software bill of materials, where we actually understand what software components are running on our networks, supporting efforts to advance software security, code integrity, but also back to basics, making sure that organizations actually have strong software and hardware asset management. We actually know what's running on their network, and then all of that is contributory, Matthew, as your background calls it out, to making progress towards zero trust. But we know that zero trust is a destination, and to get there, organizations really need those fundamental building blocks. Do you know what's on your network? Do you know what rights accounts have? And so figuring out those basics at the front end is really table stakes to get to that important level where we are managing risks to accounts and data across the enterprise.
Thanks, Eric. A lot of great priorities to dissect there. So I definitely want to deep dive into the Shields Up initiative, the things that we're doing with collaboration. But I think most importantly, I think everyone's focused on the resilient design. And I think there's been a lot of emphasis on zero trust due to the cyber executive order. So now that you've seen that we have the OMB's federal zero trust strategy, just wondering if you could expand upon, how CISA's role will be in the implementation of that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm personally so excited to see this strategy come out of OMB because it really sets a course forward, not only for the federal government, but I think for the nation and indeed for the global cyber community as a whole. Because now we all have a roadmap, a common taxonomy, a common framing to understand, what do we think zero trust means? Let's move beyond the jargon and actually think through some concrete steps to help organizations achieve what we all agree is a critical end state to reach. At CISA, our role in this space is really twofold. First is going a few increments deeper than the level of the OMB strategy to really help organizations benchmark their progress towards zero trust and identify key gaps. And one key document towards that end was a zero trust maturity model that we published earlier this year, or in fact last year. That was out for public comment. We received an extraordinary breadth and depth of comments on that maturity model. And so our team is now working on incorporating those comments from stakeholders around the country across all sectors, and then now updating that into a new version that we will promulgate in the weeks to come. And so, really taking that strategy and turning it into an actual model for execution. But the second piece is also being a service provider to provide capabilities to federal agencies and, where possible, our partners across state, local, tribal, and territorial governments and critical infrastructure to help them put together those pieces of a zero trust roadmap. For federal agencies, that could be services we provide through a continuous diagnostics and mitigation or CDM program, things like asset management, privileged access management, understanding what's on your network and who's accessing it, all of which are contributory to zero trust. And none of it gets you all the way there. But again, by helping agencies put in place those building blocks, that will then allow a faster progression towards the end states that we're outlining in our maturity model in support of the OMB strategy.
Thanks. Yeah, I would totally agree. To begin to collaborate against a lot of these initiatives is important. So I wanted to ask you about, how is CISA working to coordinate with other federal components such as the DoD, FBI, NSA to support greater information sharing and threat awareness?
We work extraordinarily closely with our partners across federal enterprise, and all really, put it in three categories. Matthew, to your prior question, we work closely with CIOs and CISOs at every federal civilian executive branch agency, big to small to micro, to not only help them understand the requirements of building strong enterprise security programs, but also help them get there. And that's really a key role of CISA is to be an enabler and a catalyst for improving cybersecurity across the federal civilian executive branch. Now, moving outside of federal networks, we work closely with these sector risk management agencies, or SRMAs, that have unique expertise into operational and functional risk affecting sectors of the economy. Think Treasury for the financial sector, energy for the energy sector, of course, and helping those agencies, again, understand how cyber risks may impact these sectors within their purview, and then provide them with services, capabilities, guidance to further raise the bar for cybersecurity within each sector. And of course, within the US government, there are also those agencies with defined operational cybersecurity roles. So of course, FBI and Secret Service and federal law enforcement to impose costs on our adversaries, the nation's intel community to understand what our adversaries are doing and inform both defensive and disruptive courses of action, and we work operationally day in and day out with those partners within each of our defined roles. And I think at this point, we have reached a strong level of maturity within the federal enterprise to ensure that each of us is working urgently to manage risks based upon our own authorities and our own resources, which then aggregates to effectively reduce risk for the nation as a whole.
Thanks. So I think to clarify, you talked a little bit about Zero Trust, CDM. We know you have quite a few initiatives around TIC 3.0 and Einstein. So from your point of view, what types of emerging technology do you see evolving to support many of those efforts?
Yeah, I think the through line through all of our technology programs, all of our cyber defense programs, is that we need to adapt urgently to address not only where network architectures are moving to, but where they are today. And address not only how users will use technology in the future, but how they use them today, right? It is now somewhat of a cliche to say that the pandemic changed how agencies and all organizations use technology and moving a significant volume of endpoints beyond the network boundary and utilization of remote access as a default rather than as an exception. That all requires significant changes to how we monitor, detect, prevent intrusions affecting the federal enterprise, and how we help non-federal organizations achieve that same objective. That necessitates incorporating not just cloud and mobile, but also really a holistic conception of how do on-prem, mobile, cloud all interact, and how do we provide a cohesive security architecture and security solutions that are able to get visibility across the network as a whole, regardless of where a workload or endpoint is located. And that requires really a reconceptualization of the security strategy that we're undertaking. The good news is we're not unique, right? Almost every organization has been on the same journey over the past several years. The pandemic accelerated that journey, but the good news is that partnering with our partners in the private sector, we have solutions in place to really modernize how we think about deploying security solutions in these newer models. And I think TIC 3.0 is one example of that, where the old model of agencies running on-prem networks, where there was a finite points of ingress and egress to the public internet, that breaks down in a mobile-first world, in a cloud-first world. And so TIC 3.0 and allied efforts are really designed to ensure that we are able to maintain needed levels of visibility and access to the federal civilian enterprise, while still understanding that the architectures of old don't apply anymore and would leave tremendous gaps in our ability to identify threats.
Thank you. So to follow up, I think you mentioned there's quite a few challenges across different agencies. I think to the other DHS components. So what has been CISA's assistance in helping to support Secretary Mayorkas' cyber initiatives, especially when you look at the other DHS components such as TSA or Secret Service or the Coast Guard?
Yeah, our secretary at DHS has really been been prescient, I think, in anticipating these cybersecurity risks facing our nation. And one example of that is, March of last year, really weeks within his joining the department, the Secretary kicked off a series of cyber sprints. And CISA has really been integral, foundational, just getting all of these. A couple that I'll call out is really our work in securing the nation's industrial control systems as well as transportation systems. And this latter one is really interesting because, Matthew, you called out TSA and Coast Guard, two of our peer operational components, as we call them, within DHS. And of course, both of those organizations have significant authority, both as the sector risk management agency and as regulators across the transportation ecosystem. In the case of TSA, not just airlines, as most folks know, but also in pipelines, in intercity bus lines, in rail, really anything that is running on land as well as air. And then, of course, the Coast Guard has significant authorities in the maritime sector, including ports and vessels. And so if you combine those two agencies with both their relationships, their expertise, and their authorities, there's an extraordinary amount of positive security change that we can achieve together. And CISA's role in this collaboration has really been as a source of expertise, a source of guidance. As TSA and the Coast Guard exercise their unique authorities and relationships to make sure it is grounded in CISA's understanding of the cybersecurity threat and the mitigations that we need to address threats to each sector. And one example of that, of course, is the security directives that TSA has promulgated, beginning with the pipeline sector, and then looking across their various authorities and making sure that their understanding of how to best use that authority is grounded in our expertise at CISA in the risk environment. And so just really an example of, moving up a level from CISA, the power of the Department of Homeland Security in bringing together authorities across components to drive really tangible security change.
Thank you. So I wanted to follow up on the Shields Up initiative. I think a lot of organizations are looking to that as a very important way to reduce risk and focus on some of the more important things to help thwart those cyber threats. So, with that, you help develop and promote the Shields Up initiative. Can you tell more about the objectives that you're trying to achieve with it?
Absolutely. It bears noting at the outset that at this point, we have no specific or credible threats to the U.S. homeland. But of course, we also know that every organization needs to take urgent action to secure their networks, to make sure that we are acting with the utmost due diligence in reducing risk to the homeland, regardless of what may manifest. And so our goal with CISA.gov/shields-up, gotta have a hyphen in there, is to make sure that we have a single place that is going to be evergreen to provide organizations with the most up-to-date guidance and information. As one example, just a few days after the identification of wiper malware on Ukrainian networks, we worked with partners in the private sector and our colleagues at the FBI to produce an advisory that has technical details about that malware, and then push that out widely and hosted it on our Shields Up site. And that's just the kind of work that we are going to keep doing. And our goal there, really, this is a lesson that we learned during Log4j, which is the value of having a single web page where an organization can just bookmark it, add to their favorites bar, set an alert when there's an update, and just have that be the one place that they go at the start of work every day to see if there's anything new that they should be doing. I don't want to go so far as to say it's a replacement for Twitter, but our goal is for it to be the authoritative place where organizations can say, what is the threat looking like and what should I do in response? We know that the current threat environment is rapidly evolving, and our goal is for Shields Up to be the one place that can keep pace with the evolving threat and help organizations adapt as the environment changes.
Yeah, Shields Up is definitely in my favorites bar. So, all right.
Glad to hear it.
With that, just the last question. What are some of the emerging CISA priorities that you're looking to focus more on the future?
Yeah, I'll just offer a few. The first, of course, is to make sure that we and our colleagues at the FBI have visibility into cyber intrusions that are occurring across this country. I think a continuity throughout our awesome chat here has been the importance of CISA understanding what our adversaries are doing and how they are doing it, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to protect other possible victims. The more that we get reports from organizations saying they've had a compromise, the more that we can glean information and share out to reduce the likelihood of other organizations being compromised. And so, CISA in this space, we are not a regulator. We are not taking any punitive action. Our goal in this space, we have the purity of mission to only focus on helping others. And so the more that we can catalyze voluntary reporting, the better we can be at doing our jobs to safeguard the country. And if folks go to Shields Up, you will see a box right at the top of the page that says how to report. And so, our top line message, particularly in this heightened threat environment, is lower the thresholds for reporting. If organizations see anything anomalous on their network, even if ordinarily you would think that it perhaps doesn't hit the threshold to report, just report it. Because that will let us help you confirm whether it's actually anything to be worried about, and if it is, help both the victim and help protect others. And then one other really key priority here, of course, is advancing the cybersecurity workforce, both the workforce at CISA, at the U.S. government, and at the country as a whole. Our director recently spoke at the Munich Security Conference and reiterated her common refrain that cybersecurity inherently is about people, not technology, and we need the humans in the workforce in this country to manage the risk and the threat that we are facing. And so we are urgently focused, on ensuring that we maintain and advance a best-in-class workforce here at CISA for our key mission, that we expand that to the government as a whole, but also that we have a pipeline in this country to ensure that we're ready for the challenge ahead. And then just one last priority I'll offer, tying back a bit to Shields Up, is making sure that cybersecurity continues to move out of the purview of just the IT team and the security team, and it becomes a C-suite business issue and a board level issue. One action to that end on Shields Up, folks will note, we now have a section dedicated to actions that business leaders and CEOs should be taking. And the goal there is, we understand very well that many times decisions on security come down to a decision about cost versus benefit, about operational risk for security gain. And that's a conversation where business leaders and board directors need to understand the risk that is facing our country and be able to weigh those equities most effectively, and also serve as an ally in empowering their CISO to drive needed change. So if we can achieve all of those goals, I think we'll be making some real progress.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Eric, for your time, and a lot of great insight into CISA priorities, emerging initiatives, and importance of CISA's mission and its role in defending against cyber threats. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tom.
Thank you so much, Matt and Eric, for an excellent fireside chat. We will continue this important dialogue at our 13th annual Billington Cybersecurity Summit on September 7th through the 9th, which I'm glad to say is going to be live and in person this year. The theme is transforming cybersecurity through a unified approach. Again, many thanks to Dr. McFadden for not only moderating today, but for GDIT's longtime support, and Mr. Eric Goldstein for participation, and for DHS's extensive participation at our summits over the past 12 years since our company was founded. To all of you listening, a thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Be safe and be well. Thank you for joining us.